Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. I'm back with another great product review. In fact, it's a product category that hasn't been on the show in quite a while, kind of two-in-one combination that has never been on the show. It's a smart lock. It's a HomeKit enabled smart lock that works with Apple's home automation platform HomeKit, built right into iOS and to what's her name that we don't say out loud. It's the Kwikset Premis HomeKit enabled smart lock. Try saying that 10 times fast. And speaking of Kwikset, a shout out to them. Thank you for providing this smart lock to Smarter Home Life for testing and review purposes. It makes this video possible. It makes this video technically sponsored, so get that disclosure out of the way. But as usual, as you've come to trust these reviews from Smarter Home Life and myself, whether the product is purchased or it is provided, you're going to get all the specs. You're also going to get my unbiased opinion of the product. One last bit of housekeeping. Smarter Home Life is going full crowdfunding this summer, but maybe as soon as possible with your help. We're going to get rid of the ads across YouTube videos. We're going to get rid of them on the website. You can directly support those efforts by signing up, being part of our new Smarter Home Life Insider program, where you can get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and footage, along with upcoming sneak peeks on product reviews and other stuff going on with the channel. You can learn more and sign up at support SHL. That's for Smarter Home Life. SupportSHL.com. And with all of that being said and out of the way, it's time to get on with it. The Kwikset Premis entirely replaces both sides of your existing deadbolt. There's a touchscreen on the front for optional code entry access and a thumb turn on the back. Measure to make sure that its size, roughly 2 3/4 by 5 3/4 inches, will fit on your door. If you have an existing Kwikset keyed lock, you should be able to rekey the Premis easily to it with their smart key technology. The Premis also contains the latest deadbolt features from Kwikset, so the physical lock portion is already very secure and reliable. The installation process takes just a few minutes and is well documented by Kwikset, although I did have to fiddle with the connecting cable a bit to get it to fit inside the housing. After it's physically set up, drop in the battery pack, install the app, and start setup. You'll name your home, if this is your first HomeKit device, pair the Premis to the app, then to HomeKit, name it, add a keypad code, and you're done. I chose Chocolate Cake for the name so that no one can just yell through my door, "Hey, unlock the front door!" And I really like just about anything with chocolate. For the touchscreen on the front of the Premis, you can create up to 30 user codes and adjust their access via scheduling and more. The touchscreen is actually one of my favorite ways to interact with Premis, especially when I can't respond to an unlock confirmation. More on that in a little bit. It also has an optional secure randomizer turned on by default, which asks for 2 additional number inputs before you put in your own code, preventing your code from being deciphered by the fingerprint smudges left on the screen. And of course, Premis also works with old-fashioned keys, but you'll probably never want to use them ever again. Okay, so before I get into the app demo and talking about HomeKit, the automation, the lock settings and whatnot, just a quick couple tidbits about the lock itself, the Kwikset Premis. It's a Kwikset product, and they've been making locks. They've been in the security business for decades. I'm not going to go into every security feature it has, but it has their latest engineering and technology in it. The anti-picking, the anti-drilling, all the different things that you would expect from a company who's been building these kind of things for a while. And they've also been building push button, the old physical push button, and electronic deadbolts and locks for a while as well. They've brought their technologies that they've had in some of the other products, they brought HomeKit into it. One of the things I actually like about what Kwikset has done, because this is technically part of the lineup of what they call their smart code locks, smart code touchscreen locks. I believe the 915 series is the one that actually doesn't have any of the home automation radios in it. It just has the touchscreen on the front, and then this is what it looks like on the back, and it comes in multiple finishes. This is the satin nickel. They've got a darker Venetian bronze. The HomeKit edition, the Premis, doesn't come in a brass, but their other versions do. Maybe they'll make a brass version for HomeKit as well, but it doesn't look like it right now. So what that means is if you don't want a HomeKit lock, but you like the physical design of this and you like the way it operates, you can get it in a Zigbee variety, a Z-Wave variety, and a variety that just has the code, the touchscreen. Oddly enough, I actually find myself using the touchscreen somewhat regularly. It just depends. I'll talk more about that in a minute. There's two parts of this I want to do. This might be a little bit longer video just because I like to go in depth in some of these into some of these features, but I'm going to run through their side of the app. So there's two sides. This is a Bluetooth lock, as most of these smart locks are Bluetooth enabled, and so it communicates to your phone and or tablet through the Kwikset app via Bluetooth. I'll touch on HomeKit in a second. With HomeKit, it can either communicate right to your phone or tablet or iPad, or it can also communicate with those devices outside of your home if you have a recent Apple TV to act as a bridge that would get you those signals. So it could actually bridge itself over to the Apple TV if you're not at home, and then if you're close by, it's going to communicate via Bluetooth right to your device. So let's talk about that. So you could use this without HomeKit at all. Why? I'm not quite sure. So here it is, the main lock screen. I can tap this. It tells me what the status is, and then it'll check the status. It's connecting to Bluetooth. It's kind of waking up the connection, and you'll hear it, and I'll lock it here so you can hear how it's not terribly noisy, but it's louder than some other smart locks. Okay, now it didn't do what it occasionally does, and I say occasionally, very intermittently, and it happens for me. It's probably an encoder or a sensor that's just off a little bit in the lock. Sometimes it may report if you lock or unlock the lock as jammed, and you may be, well, that's weird because it just fully did it. And if you manually, change the status, you'll also see this change here in the screen, and I'm going to get the HomeKit notification as well, and I can lock it. And if you get a jammed indication, you can unlock and lock the lock and it'll be fine. The jammed indication really means that just something went wrong. It couldn't tell if the deadbolt was thrown or completely retracted. And I talked to Kwikset about this, and they didn't really have a complete solution. I went through and recalibrated, kind of redid all the settings of the lock. It still happens now and again, but not very often. It means that the lock is, in some ways, I want to say unforgiving. I don't want to be mean about it, but there's no calibration in terms of the Premis will either decide that the deadbolt is 100% thrown or it's 100% retracted. There is no in between. The good thing is, if it is in the lock state and you think it's fully locked or you think it's fully unlocked, but it says jammed, it's not going to undo that. It's not going to say, well, I tried to lock it, so I'll unlock it, or I tried to unlock it, so I will lock it. It leaves it in that state for safety purposes. This is turning really easily with no pressure, with no force at all. If your lock doesn't do that, if you have to push on your door, pull it, move it up or down, or do a dance or a jig or something like that to make it to make that deadbolt turn and to really force it to be closed, you're going to have problems. The motor in these things, in any of these smart locks, is not going to just make magic happen. It has to turn smoothly. This is for any lock, so make sure you solve your problems with your door and your lock that you have before you put on a smart lock, or this one, the Premis, or any of these Kwikset products that are motorized. Do that before you try one of these smart locks. So I've said that before. I'll say it again just to repeat it. It's an expensive product at more than $200, so you want to do that and get everything working before you make the investment and put it on your door. So beyond that, let's get into the settings. Obviously, the status. You can see the status. You can unlock it. You can lock it. That's cool, but it's not very exciting. The settings are pretty basic. You can go in, you can change the lock sounds, you can get rid of that randomizer, which is kind of a cool thing that mentioned as well. I recommend leaving that on. I don't know why the fly is attracted to me here. It's going to be an issue with the entire episode. Auto lock delay. I like to turn this on. I wish there was a way to easily turn this off for a certain period of time and turn it back on again without going into the app. No one has seemingly solved this, but I like the fact that it will relock itself automatically after a timeout. You can change this, you can turn it off. It's totally up to you. The room and so forth, kind of already talked about that. That's really more HomeKit. Let's go into the user side. This is user codes. We'll get into HomeKit and the sharing stuff with HomeKit. But this is just the user codes. You can go in and set additional ones, up to 30 user codes between 4 and 8 numerical digits. It affects the touchscreen side of the lock. Doesn't affect anything else. Doesn't affect the HomeKit side. This is just with setting up the information, the codes themselves. You can also go in and view the lock activity. I haven't done much today except during this demo, but you can see manually with the phone. You'll also see in here if it automatically locked it as well, so you'll get the statuses and the times. So you can see activity. You can see this by user as well. So pretty basic stuff. Let's go into HomeKit. I'm going to go into the Apple's Home app. When I was resetting the lock to do the demos and kind of capture the screenshots after I had this set up for a while, even the experts make mistakes. I accidentally deleted my entire HomeKit setup, so I'm going to have to set that entire thing up all over again. So I just have one device. It is the good old chocolate cake, which is currently locked. Of course, I can long press on it and I can change the status to unlocked. There it goes. I can tap on it. This is pretty basic stuff within the Home app. If you have another HomeKit app that you like, other than Apple's app, you can do all this stuff as well. And I can go in here and change the details. I can include it in favorites, status, and notifications. I'm going to turn off the allow notifications. You're seeing that at the top of my screen, which can be helpful, but you can't configure those to come in only during certain times. It would be nice to know that if you weren't home, especially if you live in a small place like I do. But if you're away from home, it's kind of cool to see those notifications to know what's going on with your lock. Let's go in and make some magic happen. So obviously, locking and unlocking your door via your phone is pretty cool, but automating it is something else. So I can go in here and create a new automation, and I'm going to say when my location changes, when I'm coming home, right? Because it makes sense. I want to have the door unlocked when I come home. So I'm going to just say it's already on the home location. And I can then hit next. I can go in and say I want to select the grand entry chocolate cake, and I'm going to long press on it. I'm going to change it to unlock. So that's what I want to do when I arrive home. You're going to see also this automation requires confirmation to run because it may allow entry into your home. What that means is if I hit done, and theoretically, if I went away far enough out of the geofenced little circle and I come back, it's going to then prompt me and say, do you want to run this automation? You'll get that notification on your iPhone. You'll get it on your Apple Watch if you have one, on your tablet, what have you. You'll have to respond to that before the automation will run. This is an extra step. Some other smart locks and other systems may not have this step. Apple puts it in as a security. So this is where if you're holding groceries and you can't dig out your phone and you can't quite turn around to get your Apple Watch and press it, you might run into a problem. That's where sometimes I like to use the touchscreen on the front of the lock. And again, you got your hands full, you can't get out your keys, but I like the touchscreen being there because you can type in a lock. If you get at least one finger free, you can type in your code and unlock the door if you can't get to the HomeKit notification to say, run this automation. So here's another thing that you can do. Again, it looks like I didn't have that set up. I've had it set up. I just wiped out the whole thing recently, so I'm having to set up my HomeKit setup once again. But I do, on a regular basis, use this in terms of multiple ways of getting into the lock, keys being the last resort, but the touchscreen and the automation when I have the ability to respond to it on my Apple Watch. Usually it's on the Apple Watch I respond to it. It's easy. I've had a smart lock. I had a different smart lock before this one, had it for 2 years, and these features such as the auto unlock when you get home, if you go without a smart lock for a while, you really miss that one. So I have to say it's really cool. Automation, of course, within HomeKit and other systems is really helpful. Let's think of another place. I'd like to get rid of the fly, to be honest. Is there a button I can press for that? Anyways, another reason to have automation and to have a smart lock is, of course, when you're going to bed. If I make a new scene, so I'm going to tap the plus sign, I'm going to hit add scene, and I'm just going to pick from one of Apple's defaults here, good night. So Assuming that I had all my other devices hooked up, I would, select lights and perhaps shut the TV off and, other energy using appliances that I didn't need to stay on while I'm asleep. I could select all of those, but I only have the lock here. So good night. I'm going to say I want this selected. Actually, oops, I need that to be locked. So say that, let's just leave it unlocked. Say it was unlocked and I didn't have that automatic locking setting in the Kwikset app. Let's say showing favorites. Okay, we're good to go. I'm going to hit done. And I'm going to say good night. We're just going to assume that I'm just going to be walking to the bedroom and I'm going to say it's time for good night. I could trigger it via a hey, what's her name command, or I could just press it right here. And it's going to execute. And it's going to be done. You're going to see it lights up as well because it knows that the lock has been locked. It's the only thing in this scene, but Apple's pretty good about updating the status. If everything has changed and the scene has been activated and it knows that everything was done, it's going to light that scene up. And if I change it, it's going to dim the scene because the scene is no longer on. Of course, there are widgets. You can set this up with your Apple Watch. You can again, do it via voice commands. There's a number of ways to activate this, but that's another idea. So that's the HomeKit side. HomeKit will always be improved by Apple. It's nothing that Kwikset has access to. The Kwikset app itself is just where you're going to go in. You could manually change the status of the lock. In fact, I'll leave it so you'll watch it lock itself automatically here in another 40 seconds or so. But anyways, the Kwikset app, you're going to go in here to change the settings, to revoke user codes, for the touchscreen. Adjust whatnot. Let's go in here. I'll show you. I think we're at 50% if I'm reading that correctly. 50% battery life after roughly 3 months. So I'm assuming that the batteries, the four, I believe it's 4 AA batteries that are in the lock, should last about 6 months. And that's a pretty good amount of time you can use. They're the original batteries in there. I also like to use rechargeable, the ones from Energizer, the nickel metal hydrides, just so I'm not constantly buying new batteries. There it goes. There's the minute timeout, the automatic lock, so you can see that in operation. So that's the Kwikset app. They don't have any control of what Apple does with HomeKit. So if you like HomeKit, you're all in. You can manage it via HomeKit. There are other HomeKit control apps other than Apple's native app that you can do even more with. And there's you can manage this via not just other dedicated kind of HomeKit control apps, but even other excellent apps such as from like iDevices and through Elgato as well, which will give you a lot of really great controls for HomeKit. So that's pretty much it for the demo stuff. So to summarize everything, the Kwikset Premis, it's a solid performing lock. It's a solid performing product. My only 3 knocks with it, and one of these applies to practically every smart lock, and as you saw in the demo, that sometimes you get a little bit of a delay in waking it up, and that's a Bluetooth issue with every Bluetooth product that's out there right now. Occasionally, it'll take a couple seconds to make that connection to wake up the device. It's trying to save on battery life, and then it'll perform the operation that you requested. If you re-ask it for another operation, within a very short time, it'll do it immediately. So those are things that apply to practically all of these smart home devices that are battery operated and are Bluetooth. The motor, sure, it's a little bit noisy. It's not the end of the world. And the third one is that weird jamming issue, which shows up very intermittently, less than 5%. And I know because it's a very smooth to turn deadbolt that it's actually not jammed and it's leaving it in that locked position even though it reports it that way. Kwikset actually says they haven't really received that many reports of this happening, so I have a feeling it's just my own experience. But like I said, it's a solid lock. It's a lock from Kwikset, number one. There's a motor turning it. That has never failed. The touchscreen, really great option because HomeKit has that request with the automation that needs you to confirm it. So I really like that. If it didn't have the touchscreen and it was HomeKit and you always had to press that button, that would really be annoying. So I really like the touchscreen. I use that on a regular basis, probably 40 to 50% of the time. I use the confirmation for the rest of the time, and very, very infrequently I use the key. I was able to rekey the lock with their smart key technology because I had a Kwikset deadbolt on here before, so that was super simple to do. So it's been a good experience, and I can't say really anything more about it. It is a solid smart home product. It's HomeKit, but if you want the version of this that's Z-Wave or Zigbee or just the touchscreen, you can get it in the same exact physical form factor and design in multiple finishes. That's it for the review. A big thanks and a shout out to Kwikset again for sending it to Smarter Home Life for this review. It makes this review possible. Cuts down on our budget to have to go out and purchase products, which can be expensive. This is $230. You'll have a link in the video description and of course on the full review on the smarterhomelife.com website, which should be live within 24 hours of this video going live. And the other variants of this, about $200 for Z-Wave and Zigbee, and between about $150 and $160 for the touchscreen version of it. That is all I have to say in this review. If you like what Smarter Home Life is doing with these product reviews, with the Q&As, and with a lot more technical series that are going to be coming up on the technical level for advanced people, all the way down to the beginners for smart home, for getting started with your smarter home, as I call it, because the smart home is this way off entity that one day we'll get to when everything is perfectly smart and intelligent. If you like what's going on, please think about becoming a Smarter Home Life Insider. You get all those benefits, and you help directly support the present and future productions of Smarter Home Life. And you kind of invest in it, and if you don't like what's going on, well, you let me know. Anyways, that's it for the end of the episode. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe DeGanzik. Make your home just a little bit smarter every single day. And I'll see you next time.